All right. It's finally glad to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, no worries. So, reason I brought you on, a lot of different things. My audience is 70% male, 23 to 35. And they're all about the gym life, right? So it's the reason why I brought your ass over here, right? Diet.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
What do you want to know?
Okay, so it's a really broad overview, so I'm just going to kind of bring up some points that my people want to hear. My people? Fuck me. What do you think I am? I think I'm an asshole when I say that.
My crew.
My crew, my people, my disciples. I'm like Jesus Christ.
Followers.
I'm like Jesus Christ or something. Yeah.
Cracking open a can while we talk about diet.
Yeah.
Nutrition.
Yeah, drinking some beer with the nutritionist.
I'm having one with you. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. Cheers, Shonagh. Yeah.
Great to be here.
Good, yeah. I mean, I'm happy you even agreed to come on, right? Time is precious, right? So I don't want to waste your time. Okay, so a couple different things. Number one is just certain diets. So there are obviously many diets, like watching your macros, intermittent fasting, keto, and the ketogenic diet, and obviously paleo. That's kind of like the things that my people talk about. Why the hell do I keep saying my people? What the fuck is wrong with me? That my audience talks about. So I was kind of wondering if you can kind of break those down and see, number one, are they really myths, or or do they have some sort of merit to them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose when it comes to any diet, it really depends on the individual's goal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always the first thing that you want to consider. So you probably hear me say a lot during this, it depends. Because when it comes to nutrition and science...
You might have to speak up a bit louder. Yeah.
When it comes to nutrition and science and exercise and all that, it always depends on the individual. So that's the first thing that you have to think about. So from an individual perspective, what I'll always go back to is in any consultation, any given consultation, you want to find out about the person. You want to find out about their goals, their schedule. Are they just your normal Joe Soap, or are they a professional athlete where they have a bit more time on their hands? So there are some of the things you want to firstly consider. Then if you want to go into some of the different diets, like you mentioned intermittent fasting, and I'm sure everyone's heard of that in some way, shape or form, but the details of it or how you actually implement that then can be, a whole different ball game. So one of the most popular methods of intermittent fasting is called 16-8, where you fast for 16 hours and then you eat within an 8-hour window. So as an example, it would be, say, you have your last meal at 8 p.m. and then you don't eat till 12 p.m. the following day. So that's your 16 hours of fasting, and then your 8-hour window of eating would be from 12 p.m. that following day till 8 p.m. that evening. So I suppose to quickly answer your question, there's no one diet that's kind of the be-all and end-all, or that's kind of the perfect diet. It will always come back to the individual and their goals, but again, the main thing that you want to think about is calorie intake, and that will not change based on the diet. So if whether you do intermittent fasting, your traditional eating every 3 to 4 hours, keto diet, paleo diet, you're still going to consume the same amount of calories, but the dieting method is just different.
Okay, so I actually kind of want to bring it back a bit. So obviously you're a credible person to talk about this. You do have a master's degree in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she knows what she's talking about.
Do you want me to give you a bit of background so people are not like, who's this one talking shit?
Yeah, fuck it. Do it.
Yeah, so I suppose I did a degree in nutritional science for 4 years back in Ireland. I am Irish, obviously. You can probably tell from the accent. If you haven't got that one yet, there's something wrong. So yeah, 4 years nutritional science in Cork in Ireland, and then I did a master's in sports nutrition over in Liverpool in the UK.
Jesus Christ, master's degree.
Then after that, I worked with a professional rugby team. What?
Nothing. Just go on, quick, carry on.
When I finished that, I worked with a professional rugby team in the UK called Sale Sharks, and then I moved home and worked with a couple of sports teams back home, and then opened up my own nutrition consultancy business, which I ran for 4 years before moving over to Vancouver.
Ran, or is it running right now?
Ran/running still.
Oh yeah?
I've transitioned it to online, but not taking on as many clients as I did because I now have a full-time job.
Cool. You want to put a plug in, or I can just probably plug it in, right?
Yeah, it's the Nutrisho. You can find me on Instagram. Yeah, I don't post a huge amount at the moment, but I am still taking on clients, but it's kind of at the moment my main focus is my full-time job, and then transitioning over to maybe taking on more and more clients as time goes on. So
Yeah, so definitely know what you're talking about.
that's the background. So what did you want to take it back to then? What did you
All right, so
focus on?
let's talk about that then. So 16, basically 8-16 rule, 16-8 rule, right?
Yeah.
We basically eat for the 8-hour window, then fast for the 16-hour window, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in this case though, what if they consume more calories than they recommended in terms of losing weight in the 8-hour window? Because it seems like it's just only as a way to minimize the amount of calories you eat during the day, right?
Yeah, that's a good question actually, because if you say, for example, you want to lose body fat and your recommended calories to do that is 2,000 calories, and you decide, right, I'm going to do intermittent fasting, and great, that's your method, but your goal is the 2,000 calories of food consumption. If you go to say 2,500 daily, then that means that you're still going to gain weight because you're in a calorie surplus. So in that instance, then the dieting method that you choose, aka intermittent fasting, is not effective because you're not within your calorie requirements. So the first thing that you need to consider is the energy intake that you need, the food, or the amount of energy you need to consume. The second thing then is the dieting method, and the dieting method is only appropriate if it suits you and your lifestyle and your kind of day-to-day, routine. So a good example would be for somebody who doesn't like to have food first thing in the morning. So when they wake up 8 a.m., 7 a.m., 9 a.m., whatever, they don't like to eat purely for, they might not feel hungry or they want to wait a little bit of time. Intermittent fasting can be a really good method, but then you still have to consider the fact that you need to stay within your calorie recommendations or it's not going to work at all.
So it comes back to the answer of it depends, right?
It depends. Like it's so broad when it comes to nutrition and dieting. There's no one size fits all approach. There's no one answer. So always when I work with clients, I'll always sit them down for at least an hour and ask them about everything. It's not just diet. It's like, take for example somebody who's working 40-50 hours a week and they've 4 kids and they've other commitments outside of work. They're really, really busy. They don't have time to think about what they need to eat like every hour. They need to have like a strategy that's going to help them kind of stick to a specific dieting method. And then you consider a professional athlete who has a chef and they have a physio and they have everything to hand. For them, it might be easier to follow a more complex dieting strategy than your normal Joe Soap who's working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Okay, so let's get back to something you said. So the 2,000 calories.
Mm-hmm.
So how would you derive that number though? Like, what is that called again? That's like your daily metabolic rate, right, or whatever it is?
Yeah, so when you're calculating your calories, it's going to be based on a couple of different things.
Yes.
So the first thing is going to be your body weight. So isn't
that bullshit though? The body mass index, the BMI.
BMI is not something that I use at all.
Mm-hmm.
More so, what I'm talking about is actual body weight. So you step on the scales, and sorry, I use kilos because I'm just used to that not pounds. But just say for your normal.
What about stones?
Are we in the Stone Age now? Excuse the pun.
She's a comedian. She's a poet, but doesn't know it. She's a nutrition poet.
So if we think about someone who's 70 kilos, say, right? I don't know what that is in pounds, but you can do the math
150
yourself.
pounds, like 150
something
pounds.
like that, yeah. So someone who's 70 kilos, what you're going to do then to calculate your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate, and that is the calories that you require by literally doing nothing, just to survive, just for your.
And how do you figure that out?
So you multiply your weight in kilos for females by 22, for males by 24, and this is just kind of like a specific scientific calculation that we use. So for males it's 24, for females it's 22, and then the number that you get from that will probably be, we'll just say for females, would be in and around 1,600 calories, right? So that's just for you to survive, basically. They're the number of calories that you require. Then what you want to consider is your activity levels, excluding actual training. So your activity levels would be, say, a sedentary individual would be someone who sits at a desk all day and kind of, works from home, say, or they've got like an office job. So that would be a sedentary individual. Then you move on to someone who's active, someone who's very active, or moderately active, and then very active. So they're kind of your 4 categories. So a sedentary individual, the number that you're going to multiply, that you're going to use for that is 1.2, for a moderately active 1.4, for very active 1.6, and for our active 1.6, very active 1.8. So going back to it, to kind of break it down, you multiply your weight in kilos by 22 for females, by 24 for males, and then you figure out which category you fall into from an activity level perspective. And if that's 1.2, then you multiply the number that you get from the initial calculation by 1.2, and then you get your maintenance calories, right? And your maintenance calories are the calories that you require to survive and to maintain your sedentary activities.
Yep.
And then you look at your training after that. So from that number, then you multiply by the number of hours that you exercise on a weekly basis. So if that's 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever it is, then that's what you multiply by, and then you get your actual maintenance calories.
Okay, so what would be the recommended amount of hours to exercise?
That really depends. I would say for just someone who wants
Depends.
to be healthy, it depends. But for someone who wants to be healthy, 30 minutes a day is probably enough, or 20 to 30 minutes of just like normal exercise.
Like brisk walking and stuff.
Walking,
Yeah.
maybe a little jog. I don't know, if you go to the gym, it might be like a 45-minute workout 2 or 3 times a week or something. If you just want to maintain health and maybe just stay in shape.
Yeah, I mean, because like, I'm pretty sure like half my audience is like our gym bros, right?
So they will have different requirements.
Yeah.
Most likely, from what you're saying, if they're gym bros, they're going to want to. Their main goal is to increase muscle mass and reduce body fat.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Okay.
from that person's point of view, their main thing, if they're going to want to increase muscle mass, calories are a huge thing. So they're going to want to be, most likely, depending on the person, but they most likely want to be in kind of like, they don't want to be in too much of a deficit, because to explain that, I suppose, or to provide a bit of context, if you want to lose body fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit, which means that you consume less calories than you burn on a daily basis. If you want to maintain, you want to consume the same amount of calories that you expend. If you want to increase weight, you want to be in an energy surplus, or you're going to eat more than you expend. So for, say, a typical guy who wants to build muscle mass and reduce body fat, if they're already quite lean, they could get away with being in a little bit of a calorie surplus, so maybe like 250 calories above maintenance, because if they're lean, they're not going to really gain a lot of body fat. They might gain a bit, but there's 2 ways you can do it. So you can do kind of like a bulking phase, where you increase calories by about 500 above maintenance, gain that muscle mass that you want to gain, and then you can do a cut. So then what your aim there is that you're maintaining your muscle mass, but you're reducing body fat.
Isn't that what bodybuilders do though? Like IFBB Pro,
Yeah.
steroid small penis guys do, yeah? Yeah? I mean,
Yeah, I don't know
I told you
size, but
I told you I was sneaking a dick thing in there. Yeah.
Of course you had to do that.
Oh yeah, so they but obviously the bodybuilders do that obviously on the most extreme basis, right? Like they obviously bulk for what, like 6 months, and they cut for 4 months, do like an insane.
Yeah, if you're doing kind of a long prep period, they can, if they have a good bit of time, they'll probably do it over a yearly period, and they'll bulk for X amount of months, and then they'll cut. But the cutting can be quite extreme, and it's.
Is that something you'd recommend? Like obviously if you're not bodybuilding, is that something you'd recommend as like a normal thing to do?
Personally, no.
Yeah.
I don't think so, for a number of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is, I don't know if you've heard of a thing called body dysmorphia.
Yeah.
But
for those who don't know.
For those who don't know, it's basically you feel, I suppose, like no matter what you do, you don't look the way you want to look, and it's all about physical appearance. And I suppose it does depend on what you want yourself. If it's all about physical appearance for you, then maybe, but I think bodybuilding itself is not something that I would advocate, because it's all about how you look, and when you focus solely on that, you're never ever going to be happy, because we're going to have days where we don't look the way we want to be. And I think it's important just to have that bit of kind of confidence around, you know what, does it really matter? Does it matter if I'm 8% body fat, or does it matter if I'm 12% or 15%? that only matters to ourselves. Nobody else cares.
I care.
So all you're doing, yeah.
I'll ask the guys what's your body mass index is.
Is that what you say to people when you meet them?
Oh.
No, tell me. What's your body fat percentage?
Yeah, but wait, you obese? You 25% body fat? Yeah, like
you could probably tell if they're obese by just looking at them.
yeah, like one of my buddies, like I met him for golf, and he's like, "How's that? How are you feeling with that 27% body fat?" I'm like, "You think you're gonna get COVID because you're morbidly obese?" And I'm like,
"Oh God,
fuck."
That's just men being assholes.
Yeah, hey, it's called having friends, right? I mean, yeah,
but generally, I think that kind of stuff is not healthy from a psychological point of view. If you want to be physically healthy, I think it's a totally different ballgame. If you want to just look a certain way and try to impress other people or maybe impress yourself, but you're never going to be happy with yourself no matter what. I always say that to people. They always say, oh, well, if I just lost 5 kilos, I'd be happy. And then I'm like, right, once you get to that 5 kg of weight loss, you're going to be like, oh, well, if I just got 2 more, if I got another kilo, I'll be happy. But you'll never be fully happy with how you look unless you start working on being happy with yourself in general.
All right, so let's kind of get back to something you said that was really key, which is looking good and being physically good, right? Yeah. So obviously those are 2 different things depending on how you define it, right? Obviously, when you look good, you can take things like SARMs or steroids, which could have side effects like having a smaller dick.
That's one.
By the way, before I carry on my question, have you seen like a steroid clit before?
No.
Look it up. I want you to look it up.
Really?
Yeah.
Right now?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Look it up. It's the most fucked up thing I've ever seen in my life.
I can just imagine it's probably massive.
No, just take a look at it.
Jesus.
I just want to see your reaction live. Go for it. Go.
So do I just Google that?
Yeah. Just put on incognito mode. I don't think you want anybody to know what you were searching.
Yeah, I'll have to delete history after this. Okay, give me a second. My phone is very slow.
It's okay. Take your time.
I'm really not impressed by this. Oh, Jesus Christ. That is fucking disgusting. Why did you tell me about that?
I just figured this out like a couple days ago.
Oh my God. I don't think I'm okay after that. That's actually traumatizing.
Yeah.
Right, can we move on from the staring clit, please? Oh, Jesus Christ, give me another beer.
I'm glad you're having fun.
I am. Oh
yeah.
Right, what next?
Okay.
After that.
All right, so obviously there's a message, obviously looking good and being physically well. So like the difference I'm assuming would be what, like less chemicals in your body, more functional fitness. Like how would you, like with someone with a master's degree, I'm trying to obviously flex on your degree, like how would you describe what is functionally healthy versus someone who's like who looks good, right?
Yeah, okay, it's a good question. So like someone who is functionally healthy, the main thing they're going to be doing is they're eating, I suppose, wholesome foods.
Yeah.
And they're focusing on the main food groups. So protein, fat, carbs, fruits and vegetables, having enough fibre in your diet, drinking enough water. They're kind of the main things when it comes to from a dieting perspective that you want to do. From an exercise perspective, now I'm not an exercise professional or any way kind of like well versed in it at all, but what I would say is just to do some form of movement every day. If you work at a desk, if you're working in an office-based job day to day, get up every 30 minutes and walk around, because they're now saying that like sitting is the new smoking, where you're like you're not moving enough throughout the day to actually kind of the blood to pump around your body and to kind of keep you healthy and fit and to keep your heart functioning well. So if you do sit in an office or sit at a desk all day, just get up and walk around as much as you possibly can. Obviously every 30 minutes is probably a little bit unrealistic for most people because they've got work to do and stuff. And then from an outside of work point of view, get out for a walk, get out for the odd run 2 to 3 times a week, 30 minutes, I think is definitely sufficient. Doing yoga, meditation, things like that, like to keep your mind and body good, because like we always focus on physical fitness, but a lot of the time we don't really think about mental health and mental fitness as such. So definitely you want to kind of combine all aspects of health, nutrition, physical activity. That to me is kind of the pinnacle of an overall healthy person. And then you look at the physical perspective. So if someone wants to look good, they're mainly going to be focusing on, as I say, losing body fat and increasing muscle mass. They're always the things that people say to me when they come from a kind of like body composition point of view. And what that means is that you're going to have to be strict with yourself for a certain period of time anyway. And that might be, reducing calories, cutting out foods that you really like. And that's one thing that I always say to clients is don't cut out foods, more so look at what you can add to your diet. But from a bodybuilder point of view, like, they're not going to be eating like takeaways and chocolate and crisps and stuff like that for probably prolonged periods of time. And what's that going to do for your mental health? What's that going to do from a social aspect point of view? You're not going to be able to go out for drinks with your friends or food with your friends because you're going to be analysing everything that's on the menu. So I think it comes back to what you really want, but obviously if it's physical appearance that you're looking for, you're striving for, think about how that could be damaging towards your mental health and your social interactions going forward.
Now, there are some bro science today we'll look back at, and you kind of mentioned something, which was eating lots of fruits and vegetables, a lot of fruits, specifically fruits.
The basics, really.
But then from what's kind of basic research that I've done when I was 19 was that if you want to lose weight, you don't eat fruits because they contain sugar. Is that a myth?
I'm happy you brought that up.
Yeah.
I'm very happy you brought that up.
See, I know what I'm talking about. See, I may be like more like slightly obese, but like.
Here we go. Put yourself down now. You're listening to your friends. Tell me that you're obese.
No, they also call me a bitch, but like whatever. It's come on, bitch. I'm like, fuck, fine.
I hope your friends are listening to this. Now.
Oh, wait. What's that? So, what's up? It's not my mom. It's not my mom.
Your mom's saying you're fat.
Yeah, same with everyone else. But I've embraced that. I've embraced that identity.
That's like Joe was not fat.
Yay!
Thank you. Appreciate the support. All right. So in terms of terms of sugars with fruits and losing weight,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Very good question. So when it comes to sugar in fruit,
Yeah.
it's very different to sugar in a chocolate bar. The reason being is that fruit contains fiber, and fiber helps to slow down the digestion and absorption of sugar. Whereas if you think of a chocolate bar, it's mainly got sugar and fat. So there's nothing there to kind of act as roughage to slow down the absorption of sugar. So fiber is basically a nutrient that we consume in various different fruits and veg, nuts and seeds, whole grains, that kind of thing. It's really, really important for your overall health. And the reason being is because it's good for gut health, and it's good to kind of cause a slow release of energy. And that's essentially what happens when you consume fruits, especially fruits that have the skin on them, so like apples, pears, plums, peaches, those kinds.
So you don't want to skin the apple?
No, absolutely
Okay.
not. That's kind of the main part of the fruit that contains fibre that's going to really be of benefit. So you'd nearly be better if you're having a bar of chocolate to have it with an apple, because the fibre in the apple is going to help to slow down the absorption of that sugar, and it's going to prevent that spike in blood sugars that you get.
Yeah.
So if you think of a graph here, right, when you consume a bar of chocolate, your blood sugars spike up, and then after about an hour they come straight back down, and you start to feel hungry and you want some more food. Whereas if you have an apple, your blood sugars will slowly start to increase because you have the fibre in there. And they actually did a study, I can't remember how long ago it was, but it was basically on, they had a certain amount of participants, and they got, say 10 of them to consume, say 500 mils of Lucozade, or like a sugary drink. And then the other, then after that, then they tried to get them to consume the equivalent amount in apples. I think it was like 4 or 5 apples or something. And they weren't actually able to finish the apples because they were so high in fibre that they were actually filling them up quite quickly. So fibre will do that. It'll fill you up so you'll feel fuller for longer, and it'll also prevent you from your blood sugars from spiking.
Interesting. Okay, yeah.
But then going back to that, if you blend, so if you have a fruit smoothie, then that kind of acts the same as your bar of chocolate.
Oh, really?
You're breaking up the fibre and the sugars are released, and you're just consuming a sugary drink.
So it's almost like it's better just to kind of eat the actual fruit if you plan on wanting to, like, say, lose weight, right? Or if you're planning on just to reduce your, like, blood sugar levels or whatnot, right?
Yeah, but then it kind of, fruit smoothies and smoothies in general can be very beneficial from a performance training perspective. So say if someone is running a marathon and they're running for, I don't know, like 40, 50 minutes, or they're training for a marathon, they're going on their hour-long training session on Saturday morning, having a fruit smoothie 30 minutes before that is actually very beneficial because it's giving you a fast release of energy, and you're going to use that energy up during your training session. So that's when it can be very beneficial. So if you can think of not just what you're eating, but how you're eating and when you're eating, and fitting that into your routine so that it can actually be beneficial for you and not kind of, it's acting as a kind of a negative thing. So having a smoothie first thing in the morning at 7 a.m. and then sitting at your desk all day is not necessarily going to be beneficial and helping you to stay full for longer. But if you're going for a training session, then it is beneficial. Okay,
so I want to talk about something that you actually mentioned that was actually very key to what my audience wants to ask for, is diet to build steady state cardio.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
No, specifically, but I want to ask, so have you ever heard of the Cooper test before?
Cooper test?
So it's basically like in 12 minutes, you're supposed to run as fast as you can. Ideally, you want to run around, let's say, 2.5 kilometers or something like that in about 12 minutes.
Yeah.
What type of diet would you recommend for something like that, where you don't necessarily want to run a marathon, but you want to have explosive energy for a shorter period of time? For example, say if you want to do boxing or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I suppose from that point of view, it's going to be like high intensity for quite a prolonged period of time.
Let's say like 3 minutes. Like, let's say you want to go hard for about three or 4 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Like, what would you kind of construct, or?
I would say first, again, it comes back to energy intake. So your overall energy intake on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, fine. Let me make it more specific. Let me make it more specific. Office worker, 35 hours a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, walks about 4,000 steps a day outside of exercise.
Male, female.
Male. Yeah.
Right, so probably I'm just going to guess at this. I'm going to take a wild guess at it because I don't know the weight, but I would say probably in and around 2.3 calories, and then to get that explosive power, you're going to be thinking about kind of foods that are going to give you a fast release of energy, because you don't want to eat anything that's going to be sitting in your stomach.
Yeah.
So you want to eat probably about an hour before you do something like that, having those kind of foods like a smoothie or jellies, or something that's actually quite sugary and not necessarily like healthy, as we say, like Jaffa cakes. Do you have Jaffa cakes?
What the fuck's a Jaffa cake?
I have Jaffa cakes over here. Sorry.
What?
Big rolls? No. I don't know what to compare it to.
Cookies?
No.
No. Like
just a kind of a sugary biscuit, maybe.
Okay.
Anyway, right. We don't need that. Doesn't have to be that specific. But like jellies, like orange juice, things like that are actually going to just provide you with instantaneous energy. And that would definitely, you don't need to be consuming a huge amount prior to it, because if you're training quite a bit, that's going to be the biggest part for those kind of sessions. The fueling side of that, again, is just going to be, I would say, in and around 50 to 80 grams of carbohydrates prior to it. That will definitely sustain you for 3 minutes. Because the main thing you're going to be using there, it's anaerobic exercise. So it's not aerobic. Aerobic is prolonged, whereas anaerobic is short. I'm sure you've probably heard of creatine, have you?
Yeah, I have. So but for those that don't know,
creatine, I suppose, is a supplement that would help to provide you with more energy for those kind of explosive bouts of energy. So someone who's doing, say, CrossFit, who's going to be lifting like heavy weights, or doing, what do they call those at?
Powerlifting, yeah.
And say like, short distance runners, that kind of thing. They're all going to be having like explosive bouts of energy. Soccer players, when they're going to be, taking off from 0 to whatever speed they go. So there's going to be a little bit of that's involved in it, but creatine supplementation can be quite beneficial, and there's a lot of people who say that creatine is bad for kidneys and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. It's actually not.
I heard it's also bullshit. I heard like that's like it's not even worth it to spend money on that.
Again, it comes back to what, like, some people just take creatine and their diet is shit. So it's like, you know, it's silly. You have to make sure that you're looking at the bigger picture and everything that you're doing.
But is it worth it to kind of take like other supplements, like for example, like protein shakes or whatnot, or do they provide such a minuscule kind of growth in muscle that it may not even be worth it?
Well, the first thing is, and I'll keep coming back to it, but...
Don't worry, we're not sponsored by any protein companies, by the way. So.
Good.
Yeah.
They'll be like, fuck, you're gone.
Yeah, bitch.
But when it comes to supplements, it's always... the analogy I like to use is if you're building a house, you're not going to put the roof on first.
I would.
Or if you're making a cake, would you put the icing on first?
Oh yeah, so I can eat it. Oh, I'm messing.
But you want to build the foundations first, right? And that's the main thing. And then the roof is the last thing that goes on, and the supplements are essentially the roof. Okay? So look at your diet first, your overall diet. Calories, most important thing for building muscle mass, then protein. Right? So if your overall recommended calorie requirements are 2,500 calories, that's what you want to focus on first. Then you look at how much protein you need. So if you're someone who wants to build muscle mass, you're talking about 2 grams per kg body weight or 2.2 grams per kg body weight. Then you look at your fat recommendations. What's that? So about 0.8 to 1 gram per kilo body weight. And the two of those will stay constant all the time. And the only thing that changes is your carb intake.
Okay.
Okay? And for anyone who doesn't know what these 3 nutrients are, carbohydrates, fats and proteins are your 3 macronutrients that make up your overall calorie intake.
Now I want to talk about that. So
Okay.
you brought those things up, those 3 things. Now there's this obvious diet. It's called like watching your macros, right?
Mm-hmm.
How legit is that? Is that legit? And is that something you can probably maintain for a long period of time, provided that it's a healthy kind of alternative?
Yeah. So counting your macros is essentially counting your calories.
Okay, so
because
okay.
So to explain it, your carbs, fats, and proteins are your three macronutrients that make up your overall day-to-day calorie requirement intakes. So carbohydrates, 1 gram is the equivalent of 4 calories. Protein is the same. 1 gram of protein is the equivalent of 4 calories. And for fats, 1 gram of fat is the equivalent of 9 calories. Okay? So if you put that into context, we'll say if you're consuming 140 grams of protein per day, multiply that by 4, that will give you whatever, it's like 500 or whatever. I'm not great at maths, so don't ask me to do any maths and stuff, but it is what it is, right? I don't know how I got a master's with maths, but
Don't worry, I got an econ degree in university and I don't know how to do long division by paper.
There we go.
So
that's
there you
why
go.
we have Google and calculators.
That's why we have calculators. God damn
But
it. Wow.
yeah, so that's basically what you're doing to calculate your calories. And as I say, your protein and your fats will stay constant, and then your carbs will alternate based on the type of exercise that you're doing. So for someone like Ash, who trains nearly twice a day, 6 days a week, if you think about it, the analogy again, I love the analogies, but it comes back to, say if you're driving from Vancouver to Alberta, right? In Vancouver, you're going to fill up the car with full to the brim with gas. And then as you drive along to Alberta, you're going to have to make different pit stops to refuel the tank. That's essentially what you're doing with your body when it comes to carbs. So the faster you drive, the further you drive, and the more frequent you drive, the more gas you're going to use. The same with your body. The faster you run or bike or whatever you do, the more frequent and the longer the distance, the more carbs you require. So I suppose it's difficult to say how much carbs you need because that will again depend on the type of training that you're doing.
And that would obviously require some sort of consultation, or maybe they can look this stuff up on their own, right?
Yeah, like I would say ballpark figures, if you're thinking of someone who's just sedentary, going to the gym for 30 to 40 minutes 3 times a week, probably about 2 to 3 grams per kilo body weight.
Okay.
And then anything above that, someone who's doing kind of long distance running or triathlete events or whatever it is, they might need to go, in excess of 5 to 6 grams or 4 to 5 or something like that. Again.
Oh, it depends. Like obviously your energy expenditure, right?
Yeah, energy expenditure, gender, body weight, all that kind of stuff will come into play.
Okay, interesting. Okay, yeah, okay. So, but I guess the one thing I kind of have an issue with now is just these cookie cutter fitness programs, right?
Oh, don't get me started.
Yeah, yeah, because like there are a whole bunch of fake natty, unnatural influencers that sell their shitty fucking product, right?
Yeah.
In which case, it's just a cookie cutter diet of what they do that works for them.
Exactly.
Obviously, that doesn't work based on what you've told us right now, right? Okay.
It's basically what those people are doing, and fair play to them. They're making loads of money out of it. They're happy out
Yeah,
there.
going to Dubai, flying planes,
They're Dubai,
yeah,
they're like,
having a shower on the plane, yeah. Don't worry, I'll get there one day, maybe.
We're fucking putting in the work and actually spending time with people, whereas they're just like, yeah, this is gonna work for you, but in general, those programs don't work. For 20% of the people, it might work because they might have a similar kind of metabolic rate or whatever it is to that individual, but a lot of the time all they're doing is like, people always put up these things, what I eat in a day, and I'm like, what's the point of that? Like, okay, it might give someone inspiration, or it might give them some ideas, but following someone else's calories is it's just really such a waste of time. You need to figure out what works for you, what works for your body, what your routine is like. So a lot of the time I spend time with my clients figuring out what their day-to-day schedule is like, because that ultimately determines what you're going to eat. If you think about it, you're really busy in work, right? You're flat to the mat, you're working really hard, and you don't have time to think about what you need to eat. Going and cooking up or doing whatever, like these crazy recipes at 6 o'clock in the evening after working really hard and being stressed is not realistic. It's not something that you're going to do. So you need to think about the individual and their lifestyle and their routine to be able to prescribe them with a sustainable and realistic dieting strategy.
So I guess you brought up a key word. I always like to do this with my guests, just kind of listen to everything they say. I'm a weirdo. 58 episodes of this shit.
That's good.
Yeah, which is sustainability.
Yeah.
Yes. Obviously, for me, at least in my own opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of these seem like crash diets or fad diets where you can only do this thing for, say, 6 weeks before you fall off, or 5 weeks if you're into training camp or whatnot.
Yeah.
So for me, like, say, following your macros or intermittent fasting only seems like it's only for a short period of time. Is that correct?
Yeah, so actually, I didn't answer
go ahead.
your original question about tracking macros and how sustainable that is. So what I'd always say to people is, if you have a specific goal in mind, let's say it's weight loss, track your macros for about 2 weeks max, right, religiously, and be quite strict about it, and make sure that you're within your ranges that you need. After that, you should be fairly well equipped in knowing what you need to eat and how much you need to eat. So for example, if you're weighing out your rice, okay, you weigh out 100 grams of rice, put it into the same cup every time so that you know, right, it's half a cup that I need for my rice every time. You'll start to figure out trends and, how much chicken I need, or how much fish, or whatever. If you're vegan, vegetarian, whatever it is, you'll figure out what your levels are. And then after that, so once that 2 week period is done, then you kind of have a fairly good idea of what you need to be doing. And then after about 6 weeks, you're going to need to change your calories, because it's kind of like your body adjusts, and it's like, okay, you're eating too little, we're going to say not move as much so that you don't burn as much calories, because you don't want, your body tries to stop you from losing weight, basically.
What's it called? Like is it called homeostasis?
Yeah,
oh, fuck,
exactly.
there you go.
Oh, look at you.
Yeah, look at me.
Did you get a master's?
I did.
Did you get a
Masters in fuck all. No, I just remember this from a while ago, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, also, like, nutrition kind of exercise is kind of like a side hobby of mine. It's like a passion.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
But,
which is why I brought you on.
Homeostasis is balance, basically, in layman's terms.
Yeah.
So that's what you want to achieve. That's what your body is trying to do all the time. So there's two things you can do when it starts to resist weight loss. Is you can either try and move more, or you can eat less. So that's as simple as weight loss sounds and is, but the implementation of that is far more difficult than the actual eat more, move less. And I don't like to say, or eat less, move more, sorry. I don't like to say that flippantly, because I know how difficult it can be for people. But it is essentially that balance between eating less, moving more. But implementing that again can be more difficult. So yeah, you probably will, after about 6 weeks, have to reduce calories a bit more, or then another thing you can do is increase them. and move more.
So basically, after 6 weeks or what? 6 weeks was it?
Yeah, around 4 to 6
Yeah,
weeks.
4 to 6 weeks, because your body kind of stabilizes that you
Yeah.
have to increase or decrease calories,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
So you
Yeah.
can do like a large deficit, depending obviously on body weight. If you're naturally already quite low body fat, you're not going to want to do a large deficit.
Let's say you're a fat fuck.
If you're a fat fuck, how fat are you talking?
I don't know. Let's say 22% body fat.
That's not fat. That's like normal.
Really?
Yeah, and
But-
24 is normal.
But on the internet, it says you're
Oh,
obese.
This is why people should stay off Google and Instagram because they're the biggest. Like they're the biggest reason why people are so insecure and so striving for this specific, like body comp, weight, how they look. Like if you go onto Instagram, from a female's point of view, I'm sure every other female listening to this, I know you're probably 30% female.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
rest are
yeah.
men.
Yeah, it's true because a lot of them are from the States.
Okay, so any female or male, I'm sure as well, looking at Instagram, will just see these like Instagram models.
Lots of
and all
ass.
them, and lots of ass and lots of boobs and tiny waist, and it's like, right, that's not realistic. Like, how am I supposed to achieve that?
Yeah.
Do you know, it's just not possible.
Photoshop,
So-
right?
Yeah, and that's what it is. You see these people in real life, and you're like, Jesus Christ, I didn't think they actually looked like that. And that's not been judgmental of how they look, but it's just that you've been portrayed this image of somebody who looks like perfect.
Yeah, it's like an industry, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
industry. Yeah.
So, what were we talking about again? Where, how did we go off on that?
Something about a fat fuck.
yeah, everything. So for a very overweight person, right? We'll
Yeah.
say somebody who is like, I don't know, whatever they are, and they're obese, right? They could probably be able to manage a larger deficit of say 1,000.
But isn't that
1,000
like,
calories.
isn't that kind of like a lot just going off the bat? Like, shouldn't you just obviously decrease the amount of calories first?
You can.
Like
you can
gradually?
Do both.
Okay.
So you can
Oh,
do
okay.
gradual or you can do large.
Because I thought that sends your body into shock.
No, so if you do a large deficit,
Yeah.
what you're going to be mainly focusing on is the diet, like the composition of your diet, right? So if you go into a large deficit and you have very low protein and very low fiber, then you're going to be hungry and you're going to be like, fuck this, I'm going back to my normal diet. But if you actually do a large deficit and look at the composition of the diet, increase protein, increase fiber, and fruit and veg, whole grains, all that kind of stuff, water, exercise, then you'll actually feel quite full. So you won't feel hungry anymore, because if their traditional diet was McDonald's and KFC and all that kind of stuff, they're going to be feeling hungry because they're not actually nutrient dense, they're calorie dense. So they're higher in calories, but they're not feeling satiated, they're not feeling full from it. But if you go back to nutrient dense foods, then they'll feel full, but they're eating less.
Okay, so you talk about these nutrient dense foods, right?
Yeah.
Which would be what exactly? Like just chicken breast, fish?
Yeah, like, so protein is your main thing. So protein sources are meat, fish, eggs, dairy, and then your plant-based.
Would you consider that tofu as?
Tofu and
Yeah.
tempeh and what else?
Beans?
And like nuts and seeds and beans and all of those would be like
Yeah.
your vegan, vegetarian protein sources. They generally tend to be beans and peas and lentils and all that tend to be lower in protein, and they're plant-based protein, which is very different to an animal-based protein. Okay, because your animal-based protein is a complete protein, and what I mean by that is that it has the 9 essential amino acids that we require. So we have 9 amino acids; they're all made up together, and they become your protein. Right, but a lot of your plant-based protein sources, one plant-based might have 4 amino acids, the other might have 3. So you need to try and combine. When it's a lot harder when you're vegan or vegetarian, you want to combine these 2 different proteins to make up a complete protein. In order for you to actually, say for building muscle mass, you want to elicit muscle protein synthesis, which is the growth of muscle mass. So that is a whole other level.
No, but actually, you brought up a really good point that I want to talk about, which is basically vegan diet. Because believe it or not, like I know personally people who listen to this, my people who listen to this, my followers, my dedicated followers, my religious followers, that there are a few vegan men and women that listen to this podcast. So you're saying that they're like basically like if they want to have vegan protein, it's incomplete protein, right?
Some of them can be, yeah. So like we'll just take for example like peas or edamame beans or something.
Oh, those are good.
They are.
I know, poke.
They would have say I'm not exactly sure. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not exactly sure of the exact amino acids in these, but they might have 3 of the essential amino acids that we need, right? Then you might look at, say, kidney beans or chickpeas. They might have an additional 5 essential amino acids. So those combined will make up the 9 that we need.
Yep.
But if they were just to have the edamame beans, they're just going to have 4 essential amino acids. So that's not going to elicit muscle protein synthesis if that's what they want to build muscle mass. If they're just looking to kind of increase their protein a little bit and feel a bit fuller, then having just the edamame beans might be okay. But also it's good to note that a lot of the plant-based proteins are higher in carbs.
Okay.
Okay, so beans and peas and lentils and all of those are generally higher in carbs.
Now, is that a bad thing, though?
Depends.
Because now this is whole... Fuck!
I knew I was going to say it. It depends on what your carb requirements are.
Alright, because there's this whole kind of message out in the industry where carbs are bad if you want to lose weight.
And that's incorrect. Another one of those incorrect statements that people make. Reason being is because carbs are very different. There's like so many different
Because,
forms of carbs.
yeah, exactly. Because I want to talk about this because it's like the common thing is if you want to lose weight, reduce your carbs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that...
The reason for that is because carbs cause you to hold water, so to retain fluid. So if you eat a lot of carbs, you probably notice that you bloat a bit. And then, especially for those keto nerds out there, people who love keto, they're like, I went on keto and I lost X amount in such a short period of time.
Yeah, bro, I went on keto, bro.
Yeah, exactly. But because
bro,
they
I lost so much
water
weight, bro. Bro, I'm telling you. Bro, I'm telling you.
The best thing ever.
I'm telling you, bro. Bro, I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling
Have
you.
you done keto before?
Bro, yeah, I'm telling you, Shonagh. It is the best.
The best diet ever.
I'm telling you, Shonagh, like, I lost so much weight. So much weight, Shonagh.
And one question I would ask that
Yeah.
person, did
What
they
up?
maintain that weight loss?
Fuck no! This motherfucker blew up like a balloon. He's like, he's like, bro, you should look at me, man. Like, I lost 40 pounds. And I'm like, okay. Then this guy looks fatter than ever. I'm like, what the? I'm like, what the fuck happened to you? He's like, yeah, I like gained 40 pounds back. I'm like,
Yeah.
so I talked to you on the phone a month ago, and you tell me you gained 40 pounds in a span of a month. Like, are you fucking like?
Because you can't survive. Like I don't think. Now maybe some people can, and they're the people who much prefer fat, right? And for someone who enjoys fat more than they enjoy
Yes.
carbs, absolutely give it a go. But can you maintain that?
Yeah. For example, like, I don't think I can because rice is like life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your culture.
Yeah.
That's your tradition.
Yeah, rice is life.
It's spice is life.
No, spice. Rice is where it's at.
But the point I'm trying to make is, it always goes back to what dieting methods you prefer as well.
Mm-hmm. So
Right,
the whole
and
message of carbs are bad, they don't allow you to lose
Incorrect.
weight, it's incorrect, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Because if you look at the different types of carbs, so you've got your complex and your simple carbs. The difference between those is your simple carbs are like your sugary foods. So like chips, chocolate bars, all that kind of stuff. And then your complex will be your like nuts and seeds, fruits and veg, whole grains, brown rice, brown pasta, brown bread. Okay, so they're your carbs that you want to focus heavily on because they're high in fibre and they give you that slow release of energy. Whereas the other carbs, which are like your sugary carbs, they won't help you to feel fuller for long, and they'll just provide you with short release of energy and lots of calories. So they're basically empty calories.
Okay.
So when it comes to carbs, yes, reduce them, but don't cut them out.
Okay, so you talk about one thing that's called empty calories.
Yeah.
Now...
Like alcohol is empty calories.
Yeah, alcohol is empty
What
calories.
we're doing right now is empty.
So I want to talk to you about that, which is kind of like the standard. Do you guys use the standard American diet, like as a comparison?
Like, I wouldn't use it as a thing. So like, what would we call it in Ireland? How do I not know this? The food pyramid. That's it, the food pyramid.
So yeah, so you guys don't use. So no, like in terms of, like burgers, fries, and shit, right? Like.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
like So.
So
wait.
I want to ask you something kind of in general, which is, like, how come we why is the diet the way that we? Fuck, I'm trying to think. Why do most of us just fucking don't think about these things? Like how can we consume McDonald's? Like what's so? Is there an additive? Is there some sort of addictive thing that comes with that type of food?
If you think
which
about it, it's
hooks us on
something
that?
that is readily available.
Yeah.
It's going back to, again, right, you have a stressful day at work, you come home, there's a lot of times, and this has happened to me more so when I'm over here and asking about for that, but I have a full fridge of healthy food. And I come home from work and I'm like, fuck this. I want something. I want Uber Eats or I want DoorDash. And 99% of people will probably relate to that, because there's times where we just don't want to eat the healthy food or the healthier option. We just want something that's going to be comfort food, that's going to help us feel better. Or
So
like,
is it something in the food specifically that allows us
fat
to
and
crave
sugar.
that? Oh, okay.
They're the main thing. They're like the perfect combinations. If you think about donuts,
Mm-hmm.
they have fat and sugar, and people will say, "Oh, they're addictive," or like
Yeah.
Pringles or things like that.
Or like Coca-Cola, because I
Yeah.
think they put cocaine in.
Oh,
Was
yeah,
it like
they do, yeah.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. Is that a thing? Is that a thing they put like cocaine in?
I
Like,
think that's why it's called Coke.
yeah, I don't know. I heard
Yeah,
somewhere that
something
they,
like that.
or like the big companies, like they basically, I think they paid off scientists to say that cereal is good for you in the morning, even though it's basically sugar.
Zero is, yeah, like people, you know, it's zero sugar, but
Mhm.
they have like sweeteners in them, so aspartame and what else? There's like other sweeteners in there that are not going to cause weight gain as such, but there's no research to say that aspartame and those are bad for our health, but there's also no research to say that they're not. So it's not, I suppose, that there's no research to say that they're not, but at the end of the day, we don't know that it's not going to come out in 5 years' time that actually, you know, they're not great for you. So I would say when it comes to like fizzy drinks and things like that, switching from regular Coke to Coke Zero is like switching from smoking regular cigarettes to smoking any cigarette.
So it's basically no difference.
Not that it's no different, but it's just
Or is it
replacing the
yeah.
habit with something else.
So it's not. It's basically the alternative isn't as good as what you're doing right now, essentially, right?
Like, it's from a calorie perspective, it's going to reduce your calories largely, because if you're going to be drinking a litre of Coke a day, regular full sugar Coke to zero sugar, yes, you're going to reduce your calories, but is it helping you to kind of get over that habit or that addiction as such that you have, or is it just masking it a little bit? I'm not sure it's a good substitute. I would say you're better off trying to go for reducing your fizzy drink consumption where
Okay.
possible. Because we don't also, aspartame and those kind of sweeteners can wreak havoc on your gut health.
Okay, so explain that,
That's
because
the other thing.
the gut health basically almost acts as like a second like brain,
Second
right?
brain, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So like your gut feeds to your brain feeds to your gut, and they communicate with one another. So certain foods are going to, so we obviously have a certain amount of good bacteria in our gut and a certain amount of bad bacteria. So what we want is to populate our gut with good bacteria. And certain foods are going to, I suppose, cause that good bacteria to thrive, and other foods are going to wreak havoc with it and cause them to kind of produce gases and different things like that, and you might get bloated, you might get constipation, diarrhea, whatever it is that you might have. Some people will maybe break out in like acne or like psoriasis and things like that. Not 100% sure if they're fully linked, but some people, some studies have shown kind of the link between them. But basically, like fizzy drinks, sweeteners and things like that, if you ever had a protein bar, they have polyols in them, that's another sweetener.
Okay.
I find they just don't agree with me whatsoever.
And
heard
they
anecdotally-
act up.
Yeah.
They fuck up your gut?
Yeah, absolutely. And like there's other people anecdotally who have stated they don't agree with me as well. Some research says that they do affect your gut health.
So it seems like sugar, like
sugar
not necessarily,
sweeteners.
yeah, artificial sugar and sweeteners are kind of the main culprits
Yeah.
to weight gain, to
Mhm.
changing your hormones, which allow you to gain weight.
Yeah.
I believe that's what it is, right?
I don't know if it's changing your hormones. I think it's more so it's just not actually agreeing with your system, and the only person who can figure that out is yourself. And the way you do that is by analysing how your body reacts to certain foods. So if you have a fizzy drink and automatically you bloat, or you get like whatever, constipation, or you get like diarrhea, then you know, or that food does not agree with me, I shouldn't eat it. Whereas your friend or your brother or sister could have the exact same drink as you and they don't react like that. So we can't say whether these foods or food groups or additives are actually negatively affecting the mass of the population. But for you, is it working for you or is it
Oh,
not?
really? Because I thought that would be like a majority type of thing.
Not necessarily.
Really?
So some
So
people can tolerate
okay.
other foods
Okay.
better than other. Like, so if we think of, like, I'm not sure if you've heard of the term Fodmaps. So fructose, oligosaccharides, disaccharides, and polyols. They're basically specific carbohydrate groups.
Yeah.
People who get like bloating and those kind of digestional issues, they generally can't tolerate specific foods like leeks, cabbages, garlic onions, certain lentils, certain beans that will be high in fiber and naturally recommended or healthy. But then so they need to maybe reduce those foods or cut them out. But then the other person next to them could be absolutely fine with those foods. So it really comes back to possibly, your environment, what we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis, stress levels, workload, all that kind of stuff, and then just certain people don't agree with certain foods.
Okay. Interesting.
And vice versa.
Fucking hell. See, I was on the impression that like fizzy drinks and sugar and artificial sugars are bad for you.
Like, I don't like to use the term bad for you because I think that puts it in a bracket where people are like, right, I shouldn't eat these foods, and then when I eat them, then I feel bad.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, it's this
But
kind
isn't
of psychological thing.
Isn't that the incentive that we should be?
No.
Oh.
I know.
All right.
It's all about interesting.
Okay.
I would be an advocate of 80-20, and that's 80% of the time you're eating well, you're eating you're getting the fundamentals right. So proteins, carbs, fats, fruits and vegetables, fiber, water. Right, 7 things that you need to focus on 20% of the time. So that might be your 5 days a week when you're working. You're not just going to sit at home and after 5 days of eating healthy and exercising and be like, right, that's it now, I have to do the same now for the weekend. Because what's going to happen, you do that for 2-3 weeks and then you get bored and you get fed up and you go back to your same old thing. But if you actually do, right, 5 days a week, I'm going to be, I don't want to say good either, because good and bad, then, you put it into a category. But if you say, right,
Spoken like a real scholar. I don't want to put this in a category. It all depends.
I know. It's like properly just like you can't define.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's too broad, But
I know, yeah.
basically what I'm trying to say is 5 days a week you've been like on it. You're eating all your good foods. You're feeling good. And then Friday night your friend texts your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever and says, do you want to go for food? And then you feel, oh fuck, I can't. Because I'm on this diet that if I eat a pizza, I'm going to blow up or whatever. But if you have the mentality that, right, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have this pizza and I'm going to have 2 beers, I'm going to eat it and I'm going to enjoy it. And then tomorrow I'm going to get back on it and I'm going to have my eggs and my porridge and whatever my healthy breakfast is. And then I might have a beer tonight and that's it. That's your weekend. You've had your week of good eating, but you've also had the foods that you enjoy. So 80% of the time you're eating well and you're doing all the right things. And then 20% you're saying, right, I'm going to enjoy myself.
All right, so there's something that one of my boys asked me to ask you, which was this. There's kind of this thing going on where if you are obese when you have kids, you could potentially pass some sort of genetic thing.
Yeah.
Disposition that passes on to the kids, which allows them to become more, the possibility of them gaining weight would be a lot higher.
Yeah.
Is
Absolutely.
That's true.
It is a thing.
So let's put it in dummy perspective. If I'm a fat fuck, right? Say he's 375 pounds, right? I decide to give birth to a kid. So you're saying that's some sort of genetic disposition passes on to the kid where they could potentially become bigger, easier?
Yeah, absolutely. So
holy shit.
It can happen. Now, it always comes back to this thing called nature versus nurture. And nature is essentially the genetic predisposition can be passed on to the child. Nurture.
So there's a fat gene.
Bring them up.
So there's a fat gene that you can, like a fat genetic thing that you can pass on.
Yeah, absolutely. So
holy fuck.
It's passed on through generations and generations and generations. But say, for example, right, you and your wife or girlfriend or whatever had a kid together, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And both of you were obese or whatever. And you had that kid, but then you decided we don't want this for our child, so we're going to make sure that they're eating healthy, they're exercising, they're active, all that. So you can still change that genetic predisposition or the way that that's going to go by how you will feed that child. But generally what happens is for when people are obese or overweight, they're like that potentially because they're overeating, and then that's what's going to be passed on to the child, because they're going to still continue that trend of maybe ordering takeout all the time, or having lots of chocolate and fizzy drinks and stuff in the house, and that child is naturally, they're doomed before they even begin. Whereas if they started them out and like, right, we're going to make sure they eat good quality food, and that's not going to happen to them, then most likely they will be fine. It might be a little bit more difficult to lose weight if they've gained it, but if they start off in a good trajectory, then I don't see why it has to be doom and gloom.
Okay, yeah. So basically, it kind of just seems like, yes, that genetic, like whatever it is, could be passed on to the kid, and it can allow them to kind of become more obese easier. But then, I guess you're saying that, like, is it just could you give a percentage between like how much of that is genetics and how much of that is just kind of like environmental influences? Because like, let's say that you are like, let's say you gain weight, right? You're 360 pounds, you give birth to this kid, but you all of a sudden lose the weight.
Yeah.
Like, how much of that percentage is based on the kid's genetics of him being overweight, or just the nature around him?
I would say if you really work on the nurture side of it, like, and how you bring that child up from a food perspective, then I'd say it would be like 40-60, and kind of 60 been the nurture side of it, and the 40 been the genetic side of it.
Okay.
So it's not like the be all and end all. It's not the end of the world if you are born into that situation. But again, 9 times out of 10, the parents' habits will transfer onto the child. If when the parents have that child, they decide to change their habits completely and a whole new lifestyle and everything's great and we're all eating healthy, then I think there's full chance for that child not to be overweight or obese. But then if they go down a slippery slope, then the chances of them gaining weight quicker than someone who hasn't had that genetic predisposition, that their chances will increase that they would probably gain weight a lot quicker than somebody else.
Yeah. It's a wake-up call for some people wanting to have kids if they're...
But this is it, and that's why a lot of women get tested for, I think, called gestational diabetes, where they can actually have diabetes while they're pregnant, and their child that can be passed on to the child.
Jesus Christ. Fucking hell.
That's why it's always recommended that, like, your doctor always say, before you conceive, try to be a normal, healthy weight, because it's obviously easier to conceive, and then secondly, it's better, obviously, for the long-term health effects of the child.
All right, cool. So last couple questions before we end it off. So let's say that I decide to go to the gym, whatever, and as you can tell, there's like a million fucking coaches that are there, right?
Yeah.
That, like, it seems like to me they're just more salesmen than anything else.
Salespeople,
yeah. Would you, like, okay, what would somebody be looking for if they say, hey, look, I'm actually looking at a long-term solution, obviously not a short-term solution? What would they be looking for in terms of whatever diet to look out? Because it seems like they might be selling their dumb shit or whatever it is, right? Or something that isn't sustainable. Let's say they pay for a 10-week program, the diet's only good for a 10-week, kind of window. Yeah.
So what I would say, if you're looking for a coach or a nutritionist or exercise,
I want to fucking finish this beer.
Exercise person, what you call them, personal trainer,
Fuck!
or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
The main thing you want to consider is, do they actually want you to change for the long term, or do they want you to change for X amount of time, and then they'll rely back on you again, right? So, like, take for example, I'm a nutrition consultant, and I'm like, right, okay, you need to come to me, and I need to tell you exactly what to eat for the next 4 weeks, and I won't educate you at all, but you just listen to what I do, and I'll give you the specific diet plan. What have you learned from that? Absolutely nothing. They'll do that for 6 weeks, then they'll think, great, I've lost the weight, I don't need you anymore. They put it back on, and then they come back to you because they'll always need your help. So if you want something from a long-term perspective, you need to find someone who's going to educate you, number one, and focus on habit change, because your habits will severely determine your eating behaviours, right? An example of that, I like to give examples because it provides a bit of context, but an example of that is if you sleep for 6 hours a night, or 5 hours, we'll say, you sleep for 5 hours every night, you wake up in the morning, you're tired, reach for the coffee straight away, you're naturally going to be hungry, because if you get less than 6 hours of sleep a night, your appetite hormone increases, and then that means that you want to eat more food, right? So that's a habit. You have the habit of going scrolling to your phone until 1 a.m. You don't get enough sleep, and then you're naturally tired the next day, which feeds on to you're going to eat more, right?
Oh, okay, so less sleep equals...
More hunger.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's actually better to...
You need to sleep more. So
8 to 10 hours, that type of thing? Or
anywhere above 6. So
okay.
Between 6 and 8 hours is absolutely perfect.
Because I know some guys who sleep for 4 hours a day. They operate like they're perfectly okay. No?
I just don't know if anyone can do that long term. I guarantee you they're snacking all day.
The Rock does it. Kevin Hart does it.
That's why he's called The Rock, because he's a beast.
Margaret Thatcher did it.
Okay, we don't need to compare ourselves to anyone else, as she said earlier.
If Margaret Thatcher can do it, then I can do it. If The Rock can do it, then I can do it.
Sleep is probably one of the most important things you can do if you want to lose weight or be
Sleep?
healthy and function in general.
Because that reduces cortisol levels, which...
Recovery, yeah.
Recovery?
It's one of the most important things for recovery, for your appetite. Like, honestly, if you change one thing, I would say if your sleep is shit, improve that first, and then look at
Shite.
Shite.
Sleep is shite, yeah?
You're shite.
Yeah, you fucking idiot.
He's from Wexford,
Yeah,
guys.
Wexford, babe. So, yeah, basically, habits are a really, really important thing. So that's your habit. Go to bed late, get less sleep, increases hunger, reduces potential to lose weight, and you will move less. Your body will naturally move less because you're tired.
Okay. Okay.
Then, once habits are established, you've got a good habit and good routine, then focus on your diet and how your diet is going to be affected by your routine. So if you're up at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m., are you going to be able to have breakfast before that? What's the story with meal prep? Can you actually meal prep? What foods are you going to buy? So I think coming back to those kind of gym programs and stuff, you want someone who's not just going to tell you what to do, but to actually coach you. And coaching is very different to someone who's just going to give you a diet plan.
All right.
Because coaching is actually understanding the person and what you need to do to advise them and help them to make those changes that will actually last a long period of time.
Okay. So sleep is good. So basically get more than 6 hours of sleep because that's key to diet. Yeah.
Absolutely key. Yeah.
Okay. Last question before we end it off here is times of eating. Right.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. You know. So is it? Because I know you shouldn't eat before you sleep. That's kind of like a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So should you eat most of your calories in the morning after you break that fast? Let's say that you fast for 16 hours or 12 hours, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Is that when you should get the most amount of calories in?
Generally, you should try and eat the majority of your food within sunlight hours. Okay, so...
Looks like we'll be eating tonight then.
Yeah, I know.
Fuck.
Just drink empty calories.
Fuck, Shonagh.
You fucked up your email. No, but like in general, what happens is, right, so our body kind of functions based on daylight, sundown kind of, right? So daylight, your hormones wake you up and you're ready to go, function, sundown, and then you start to produce your sleep hormone. Okay, so your sleep hormone basically is like your rest and digest, where your body is like, this is sleep time. I am not doing much more after this. So your digestive system slows down. So if you think about it, if your digestive system slows down and then you eat a large meal, what's going to happen is you're not going to digest the food properly. You're going to be bloated, probably crampy, not going to sleep properly, and then that spirals again into not sleeping well, hungry the next day, blah blah blah. So I would say the best thing to do is try and eat your larger meal at lunchtime and not have a large meal in the evening time. But again, if you're running, doing an Ironman or doing a marathon, or you're like a professional rugby player, how are you going to get the number of calories that you need in such a short space of time? So they may need to spread that out between maybe a 16-hour window or a 14-hour window rather than 8.
Cool. All right. That's pretty much all. We've been going for about an hour and 8.
We've been talking for that long?
Yeah.
I didn't think I could talk that long.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Cool.
Thank you very much. That was great.
Yeah. You had fun?
Yeah.
That's good.
Very enjoyable. Love the puns.
Yeah.
Love the innuendos and always.
But so that image of the steroid.
That really set me off.
Yeah.
I don't know will I ever come back from that, to be honest.
That bad. Yeah. So like
I'm having nightmares tonight.
my buddy showed me that. He's like, hey, look. He's like, hey, bro, man, look up steroid clit. I'm like, okay, this can't be that bad. I'm like, what the fuck?
That's just
That shit's true. That shit's true.
That shouldn't be a thing. I'd say it is true. I wouldn't.
It's
be
like a
surprised.
small little piece.
Oh.
It's like, what the fuck?
I'm traumatized by it.
I'm sorry, Shonagh. I shouldn't have done that to you.
Look, I'll have nightmares about that night tonight.
You know what?
Thank you very much, Friday Night Maid.
You can thank me for that. So whenever you go to sleep, you can be like, oh wow.
This is all I see in my dreams. I wouldn't call it a dream. I would call it a nightmare.
All right, yeah, cool. So I guess our time is almost up. Shonagh, I just want to say thank you for coming on. Is there anything you want to give a shout out to before?
Yeah, well, if anyone, obviously, it's not really a plug, but it's just if anyone wants
Plug
to
it in,
check
I don't
out
give a
my
fuck.
Instagram, it
Yeah.
is the Nutrisho. As I say, I'm not doing a huge amount of consultations at the moment, but if anyone even has any questions, send me a message on Instagram. I have no problem answering them. Or an email. My email address is on my Instagram page as well. If they have any queries or questions, then yeah, I'm happy to have a chat with them.
Cool. Hopefully you don't get a couple people sliding in. I don't know.
I'm sure there'll be like thousands flooding in now after this.
Yeah, you think? Oh, that's
Sliding
fun.
in.
Yeah.
Sliding into your new DMs.
Yeah, please don't slide into
Is
my
that like-
DMs with any. I don't want any steroid clit pictures in my DMs.
Can you imagine just, you wake up one morning and there's like 50 messages of just steroid clips?
What's gonna happen now? I'm traumatized.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh my god, you're actually making me cry.
Oh my god. Oh wow. Holy shit.
Good cry, don't worry.
Oh no, not like a bad cry, right?
No.
Good cry? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's all good. Yeah,
Cool.
that was great.
Awesome, yeah. And
Thank you very much for having me on. I
no
enjoyed
worries. Don't slide into your DMs.
It.
Hey guys, so these are the ads. I try to make them as enjoyable as possible. So right now, just in terms of who we work with, so we do work with a company called OVOU Smart Cards, and what they do essentially is that they have one business card that has all the business information you want, and it acts like a regular business card. And let's be real here. Who actually gives out those physical business cards and leaves a lasting impression? I usually just throw them out anyways after I just see them because I don't ever use them. But with the OVOU smart cards, what they do is that it's one single card, tap it onto his person's phone, that uploads all the business information you want, gives a lasting impression, and it also really just gets rid of the inconvenience of just carrying multiple cards. So right now I've partnered up with them to help my listeners earn a discount off the card. All you gotta do is enter the discount code Joe10 at OVOU.com. That's OVOU.com to get $10 off the card. Also brought to you by one of the other companies we are working with is called Bond Board Leadership Training. Now, for those who don't know, I've actually had Gordon Newell on the podcast a couple of times, and he's a super credible individual, former military ICF leadership coach, and he knows exactly what he's doing. So right now I've partnered up with them to help my listeners just get a secure, free online workshop. Who doesn't want to better their life? So, that's assuming why you want to listen to this podcast. So right now, all you got to do is just go to bondborn.com and enter the discount code EARNIT, that's EARNIT, all lowercase letters, to get yourself a free online workshop. Lastly, also just helping a buddy's business out here is Miguel Bautista Media. Now, I've known this dude since high school. He has produced about 1,000 plus videos. He's worked with multiple companies, and he knows what he's doing when making videos. So right now, I recommend you just go check out his Instagram, Bautista Media, if your business needs videos. Because let's be real here. If you're online, if you want to make any sort of presence, you need high quality videos. If you need help with that, Bautista Media is the man to go to. His description will be in the podcast notes below.